Video is intended to describe a light blade mainframe named Sahu, which means transcendence in another tongue. This will be quite the lengthy, long dissertation to fully categorize the entire aspect of this construct, and to join me on this endeavor will be my whimsical stick figure chakra map, to which I'll be referencing quite a bit for various crystalline chakra recognition stimuli. And as a quick little preface and disclaimer, I'll be clearing my throat quite a bit to talk about this extensively dense topic of this mainframe. And first things first, I will provide a preliminary overview of the conceptual intended design of this stationary mainframe, which of course has been developed to be on top of a salt lamp pyramid. And ideally, when the salt lamp, of course, is illuminated with a, most importantly, incandescent classic bulb, not LED, to actually generate heat, it works to heat up the salt to generate a purification emanation, which is quite critical for the intended design. So the aspect of this crystalline composition affixed to this salt lamp is designed, of course, to capitalize on the purification, which always consistently charges the apparatus at a consistent ratio. And to assist with actually making the magic real of this very exotic design would be something called an alligator clip that goes into a cord seen like so in this Arizona mudroom, going all the way over here, grounded into the outlet seen right there in this illustration purpose. So the most important feature of that concept would be the aspect of the purification of this entire mainframe, then grounding it through the outlet space, which of course conjoins all outlets into an entire house, for example, into a copper rod driven into the earth somewhere on the premise by code. So the big aspect of why that's critical to highlight is that the design of this entire exotic composition, before I get into it, will be, of course, purified, amplified, and most importantly, grounded through all of the outlets to generate a tangible containment field before it goes into a copper rod driven into the earth. That's quite the crucial aspect to discuss, even over a leaf blower going off next door. And as a quick little overview of the crystalline composition right now, I'll be discussing the aspects of the four terrestrial elements, that of earth, fire, water, and wind, being the four directions in a crystalline configuration power pack, so it has a very even energetic distribution. And to basically conjoin and affix all of these compositions of these various earth, fire, water, and wind of the four elements will be that of love, which could be considered the ether or the fifth element, to be the strong binding force of all the elements, of course, of love being the dominant lateral configuration down below, as well as all four power packs are affixed to something called the transmutation ratio. Then up here is something called the abundance ratio, which has been quite the prolific wide distribution success since the beginning of 2025. Though Sahu is not technically a proper entry into the abundance field, having this exact frequency emanation is very much derivative of the 50 siblings or cousins of the abundance concentrated spectrum in wide distribution across the earth. So this is the abundance ratio. Then up here will be a love currency developed into existence by the wonderful Stephen A. Ross, who has developed the coin embossed upon it to say, "With love, in love, and through love." On the other side of that coin would say, "A beautiful heart, open mind, and a humble spirit." So this coin has had quite the prolific augmentation seen in the circular blade band going around it in quite wide global distribution, such as dissemination of this particular frequency, or basically coin with various configurations around it across the world in various pyramidal complexes of Egypt and Mexico, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Easter Island. These guys are literally all across the world developing a pretty consistent network. That's a whole long side story, so it's going to be quite the Herculean feat to stay disciplined on task of keeping the cataloging and the purpose of this construct very linear, because obviously there is much to discuss and I have a lot of explaining to do. Okay. So that aspect right there with the love currencies, of course, has the love frequency affixed to it, much like down here. To kind of give a little preface, now I'll be getting into the individual power packs. And before I do that, I will discuss the transmutation ratio as a very appropriate scaffolding to base a foundation of such a diverse crystalline composition, seen with these two bands right here of, once again, the transmutation ratio. So the aspect of the transmutation ratio is felt to be a very grounding concentration of energy that is inherently designed to transmute negativity into positivity through high reprocessing into the earth. So what I'll discuss right now is hematite, seen right there. Is perhaps the most powerful grounding element in the mineral kingdom based on its high iron concentration to ground all excess stray radial energy through the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing. In tandem with smoky quartz in subcapacitation sequence, providing the same energetic stimuli through a slightly different frequency filter to provide extensive grounding of excess energy through the root chakra, into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing. So the two together could be, of course, deemed transmutation by having such a high consistent regrounding of energy or etheric dialysis into the earth for constant purification, which also makes for quite the critical contingency to take the entire exotic spectrum range of all 5 elements by design and give it a very strong grounding point to, of course, make the magic real and bring tangibility to the entire endeavor. So that's always why it's a critical foundational preface, and hence there's 2 blade bands of exactly the same frequency. So one is set upon brass and one is set upon silver. So the brass can be considered more of an output yang, while the yin of silver is more of an input. So the exact same frequency is making a very strong containment of projection and reception at the same time for a consistent grounded balance of output-input for a very, very strong dynamic purification agent, which also be very advantageous, of course, to ground into a space with outlets, for example, if indeed the building's up to code, which grounds through all of the outlets combined to goes into the earth. So that makes for another purification of energy at a very high ratio. So once again, that's the transmutation ratio discussed. Next, I'll be discussing the 4 terrestrial elemental power packs. Starting off with Earth right here, and before I do so, I'll discuss the common denominators of each of these constructs. So at the core, barely visible at this point, is actually oak, barely seen. Let's see if we can get an example. There's oak in between these 2 selenites seen right here, which have been, of course, woodworked and affixed and hewn to shape. So the aspect of the oak comes from Sedona, Arizona, from Oak Creek, which is actually a waterway that always goes through this place consistently. So the oak locality is a very fantastic, strong concentration of oak based on its high red rock iron matrix ingestion. I do my best to not speak too much Christianese and speak plain for cataloging purposes, so it's actually comprehensible. And so I beg anyone's pardon. But the aspect makes it relevant too is that the carbon-based oak is a very dense atomical wood, which of course is very strengthening for the carbon-based compatibility of the human avatar for now. And the aspect that makes it quite crucial as well is having the carbon-based oak in the structure also makes for a further transfer of the silica, or the crystalline energy, if you would, into tangible ingestion for the human avatar's carbon-based nature for now. And that makes for a quite critical aspect in actually making the magic real. And so all 4 of these power packs have exactly the same core from the same branch, from the same tree, of course, from Oak Creek, few miles up closer to Flagstaff than Sedona, be very specific, that has its tendrils grounded in the waterway consistently. So of course the home tree, the donor if you would, is always a very abundant, happy, healthy tree for full dissertation conceptualization. I'll usually oftentimes save the discussions of selenites and kyanites for last in the end of these videos, but I might as well discuss the common denominators to get that out of the way. So each of these power packs have been developed, of course, to be a blade magnificent sequence for a particular frequency emanation octave based on elemental and color resonance activation that translates to auric field stimulation. But the aspect of these selenites seen in each of these power packs play quite the crucial role to take an entire crystalline power pack that's in a closed loop reactive circuit and work to purify all of the crystals, as well as amplify all the crystals and harmonize and bring equilibrium to the entire crystalline group, which is quite crucial. And by itself, selenite is quite the master healer, because selenite is very powerful for the stimulation of the 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakras back to one's godhead, basically working for a very powerful way to mitigate debris from higher guidance of one's highest alignment with creation to the conscious self, which by itself makes it quite the pivotal, remarkable, crystalline ally to a spiritual adept seeker. As well as with that high frequency induction, also works to clear stagnant energies from top to bottom through the entire auric field as a true master healer. And that's but independent of the fact that it takes an entire crystalline algorithm pitch and once again works to amplify, purify, as well as harmonize the entire crystalline ratio, which is always the hallmark of efficient spirit tools, in my humble opinion, I guess, of my life's work, to be quite frank. And so the selenites play a critical role for each of these power packs, which hopefully I won't have to repeat myself on that subject. Then, the 4 spectrums of kyanite affixed to each of the power packs next to the selenite inside of the elemental blade bands play quite the critical role to, of course, make the magic real as well. So for this section, I'll be using whimsically fast penmanship to do my best to illustrate the capacity to transfer energy at the speed of quantum light that literally is the governance of kyanites. So seen right here is black kyanite, the most rapid transfer energy in the mineral kingdom from the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth, absolute quick as possible, which also makes for a very powerful radical adaptogen to ground energy very rapidly, and quite simply in that capacity as well, make the magic real. And the aspect of kyanite too I'll discuss right now is the 4 combinations also work as another layer of etheric Teflon that is very discouraging for negative energy to maintain in the auric field with that much rerouting and rebuffering of energy and bypassing and bridging, that it kind of works like a very powerful dispersal agent with energy incoming that disperses very, very quickly in all directions to maintain ideal I am template harmonized frequency pitch, quite simply, if that makes somewhat sense. Moving on to orange kyanite. Orange kyanite is a very rapid transfer of the sacrum to the highest capacity, though of course that bridges past limitations, implementations such as false self-identities that would basically be blocking one's true dharmic creativity of why indeed they've been born here. Very advantageous. Then green kyanite is the most rapid transfer of heart chakra energy in the mineral kingdom that bypasses very quickly through blockages of heart chakra limitations of learned behavior of the human ego-mind identity experience, of course, as well as blue kyanite being the most rapid transfer of neural pathway reconfiguration of the ideal whole brain thinking to mitigate cross interference from the left and right hemispheres, aka the awakened third eye in that capacity. So like I mentioned, now that all 4 power points of the kyanites are addressed, they all work basically at the absolute quickest transfer ratio in the mineral kingdom possible. So they're quite integral and contingent to further ensure the vibratory emanations make the magic real by rapid transfers of energy at a very, very high ratio. And of course, like I mentioned thrice, that would be the affixed nature of all 4 power packs of earth, fire, water, and wind for the highest transferability, clearing capacity, as well as the amplification harmonization of each of the individual nodes, all part of the closed loop crystalline emanation of the Sahu mainframe. Okay, so now that I've discussed the common denominators of these 4 power packs, this should go much quicker. And so first things first, I'll discuss the blade bandings around each of the power packs, and then discuss the individual supporting elements seen right here. So starting off with red jasper seen right here. Red jasper is the quintessential stabilization of earth energy in the mineral kingdom as a profoundly stable and powerful root chakra stabilizer in the mineral kingdom. Then clear quartz will be a common denominator as well as a neutral subcapacitation to naturally and neutrally amplify the energy of the sequence in a blade band ignition ratio to be one singular frequency amplification of this particular power pack. So of course clear quartz is very, very advantageous for the aspects of consciousness assisted technology, which of course means impulses, amplifications of magic from the wielder. And that, so of course, clear quartz's dynamic healing range is virtually unlimited based on the aspect of conscious perception. So that's also why it makes for a perfect neutral amplification of other more conditional frequencies seen in the ignition sequence. Then from clear quartz, yep, clear my throat, to amplify into red garnet, another classic root chakra earth frequency of antiquity of great strength. Then clear quartz into ruby, seen right here. Ruby is the quintessential 9 out of 10 hardness scale root chakra segment of great notoriety, of course, and as well as a true precious stone most mortals have heard of based on its literally deified properties at this point, as well as being a true precious stone. So the aspect of the ruby, it makes for quite the dynamic activation of the root chakra, zest for life. Clear quartz into red jasper, clear quartz into red garnet, clear quartz into ruby, and so on till it completes its sequence, thereby being the quintessential earth frequency stabilization and stimulation of the root chakra of the earth realm. Then these aspects of these crystals affixed here will be more supporting roles of the primary blade bands of each of the power packs. Starting off with Celestial Smoky Quartz. Celestial Smoky Quartz, just like Smoky Quartz mentioned previously, is a fantastic grounder of negativity by high transmission alignment to the earth plane for grounding negativity and positivity. But the aspect of the growth structure of Celestial gives it quite the remarkable, very far out dissertation, if I must say so, in about 16 and a half minutes of this already far out dissertation. So the growth pattern of Celestial works as an auto-regulator for the entire closed-loop emanation sequence, which basically means that it works like another adaptogen to auto-calibrate the frequency pitch of the most comfortable adaptable range for the, of course, the primary recipient, and also to get very far out and very quantum, all the recipients in proximity, it auto-calibrates the frequency pitch to the most ingestible range, so it does not cause massive overtures, but it, of course, will basically govern the frequency pitch to the most ideal receptivity to whoever is in proximity contact, either by space or even through the network of the I'm getting off track, of course, because it's quite far out, but the aspect of any entanglements for the primary recipient, of course, makes transfers of equilibrium to the entire range. It, of course, also works as, for to be very pragmatic, if possible, in this dissertation, it also works to, of course, auto-calibrate the frequency pitch of the entire algorithm of this output to be very comfortable at all times for whoever it is interacting with the frequency range. I think that's enough about that for now, but basically, yes, a quite the critical safety feature. Anyhow, then moving on to Sedona Red Rock, which is quite, of course, from Sedona, Arizona, a very famous mystical place in the earth plane, and with the very high iron concentration, hence this crystalline stone has oxidized red, is very indicative of a very grounding, very powerful primordial root chakra earth frequencies grounding stimulation of that of high frequency synchronicity magic made real, quite simply. Then above that would be Serpentine from Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta, of course, is quite the famous metaphysical place in the world as well, and Serpentine is actually a fantastic earth elemental, full kundalini stimulant from the entire light body as well, and so in that regard it makes for quite the dynamic combination of Sedona and Shasta seen in crystalline format as a comprehensive superconductor to, of course, resonate with both those power points on the earth. Then above that, this actually is a common denominator for all the power packs, seen at the very top, which I omitted because obviously there's a lot to talk about here. This would be black tektite, which is a product of meteorite impacting sand. So, of course, with that cosmic impact, it carries and records that celestial entry into the terrestrial realm. And so with black tektite being the product of vaporization from meteorite vaporizing sand, it carries a very cosmic high frequency energy. But very fortunately, it's a black-gray crystal that makes for a very advantageous fortification of the entire light body scaffolding from, luckily, the feet up, from the earth stars up, to raise vibrations in a very potent, tangible, foundational manner. So that's, of course, why that is distinctly a common denominator for all four elements seen right here, because of its impressive way to tangibly raise vibrations, particularly for each of the power pack sequence nodes. And by golly, that would be the Earth power pack. Now this should be much quicker, much more efficient, and streamlined. God willing. As I consistently clear my throat to discuss more magical concepts. So this would be the Fire Elemental Power Pack, starting off with Tiger's Eye right here, which is a very fantastic Earth-Fire frequency that makes a fantastic alignment, stimulation of course, but most importantly, the alignment of the sacrum, the solar plexus, as well as the root chakra. So it makes a very strong lower 3 fortification alignment to straighten them out, very impeccably so. Hence, it's a very famous crystal for that purpose of equilibrium, harmony, and fortification of the primal resources of the human avatar. And to perfectly assist that will be clear quartz neutrally amplifying into carnelian. Carnelian is an orange ray crystal of antiquity, highly utilized in ancient Egypt as a stone of Horus or Ra. And of course, that has a very powerful orange ray stimulation of the sacrum chakra, the root, and the solar plexus. So naturally, the Tiger's Eye works great in tandem to align the stimulation of the carnelian to a very optimal lower 3 chakra fire elemental disposition. Then clear quartz into fire agate. Fire agate is the most stable fire elemental stimulant of the sacrum, solar plexus, and root chakra in the mineral kingdom. Hence, the three together are quite the stable, stimulated lower 3 chakra fire elemental spectrum, which is quite advantageous for, of course, actually making magic real and the in-the-body experience, quite simply. Which, of course, continues the sequence till it grounds back into itself. That'd be the Fire Blade Band. So right here, this would be Libyan gold tektite, which was a private reserve crystal utilized by the pharaohs of antiquity to be carved into scarab beetles for their magi breastplates, which of course was indicative of their badge of office of the appointed divine rulers, which makes it very mystical and very cool. And the aspect also of Libyan gold tektite is quite the mysterious space magic rock of celestial nature. And what's cool about that guy too is that with its extremely concentrated solar plexus and sacrum stimulation, it also brings a very powerful storm overtone of gold white light illumination to the entire auric field from top to bottom, besides the cardinal focus of fire. So it's quite the dynamic dharmic accelerant to align one's energy with their highest divine intention made manifest. So it's one of those quintessential like I said, dharmic accelerants that are quite powerful, and one of my top 5 favorite crystals, if I had to say so. Then that's quite the statement coming from a rather obviously enthused crystal lover, quite simply. And then above that would be Himalayan golden zestolite. So obviously the locale of Himalaya, Tibet area, is a very profound Om resonance of unbroken discipline in the human history annals of spiritual practice. And so the Om resonance is quite powerful in this golden crystal of gold white light source attunement. So there's other crystals much like it affixed to this apparatus, which will eventually be gotten to, but the aspect of golden azaztolite makes for a very powerful high heart direct source Om gold white light source resonant alignment of the high heart, which is very, very advantageous because, of course, when you align source with source alignment, kind of puts the source in sorcery. So that's another dose of very powerful divine alignment seen in the crystalline format. Then above that would be Sunstone, a lovely cardinal fire elemental sunny frequency of great stimulation to the solar plexus and the sacrum, and it's quite simply what I would utilize as quite an effective antidepressant enthusiasm generator of very dynamic, sunny, good vibrations of feeling very, very good. And so, of course, in that regard too, with that extreme cornucopia of blessings of feeling that great, the aspect also of feeling good, of course, affects how the quantum void reacts to you in circumstances and scenarios. So when you feel good, of course, feel enthusiastic, your vibration goes out, then of course it comes back as enthusiastic thanks, quite simply. Then above that would be fire agate and another proper dose, just like the blade band to kind of double up on that frequency. Fire agate, like I mentioned, is the most stable fire elemental stimulant of the solar plexus, sacrum, and the root chakra, for the absolute zest for life, enthusiasm, energy. So that's why that another dose, independent of the blade band, was affixed here to have a very strong lower 3 scaffolding stimulation, of course. Then right here will be Star Argonite, which technically is a full light body healer, but also works as a very good placement in the fire range based on its calcite capacity to burn through any limitations or basically stagnant patterns from the entire chakra column from top to bottom. And it would be one of the master healers I employ quite frequently as a trilogy, or a trinity if you would, of full light body dynamic healers, which of course will be mentioned in turn. But Star Argonite has a way to, of course, clear through any debris very effectively of the entire chakra column of whatever patterns of dis-ease are manifesting, and basically work to, of course, clear them at the chakra etheric template code level and be very effective for free-flowing energy of one's ideal configuration. So that's a true master healer that goes very well with the fire range to burn through any stagnancies that be impeding one's direct template fully manifest in the human avatar. Then right here would be water. So the aspect of water, so with the blade band, starts off with clear quartz, be a neutral accelerant, going into moss green agate, which is the most stable heart chakra stimulant in the mineral kingdom I can get my hands on, which plays quite the crucial role. So it's one thing, of course, to have intensive stimulation of various ranges. That, of course, applies back to the stabilization as previously mentioned. But the aspect of having stabilization of extreme stimulation is, of course, more permanence and stability of manifestation, which is quite simply vibrational engineering magical efficiency as far as I'm concerned. So that's why, of course, I discussed that aspect as a cornerstone first, because this aspect is designed to be a perfect water elemental stabilization of the heart chakra, which goes into clear quartz, into emerald. Emerald, of course, is a very, very famous green ray crystal of antiquity that's very well known, and it makes for quite the profound stimulation of the heart chakra to the highest capacity of 8.5 out of 10, the hardness scale. And so the aspect also plays for the role of being the quintessential stone of abundance. And so with that abundance frequency seen right here, makes for an absolute incredible heart chakra activation of the highest degree. Then going into clear quartz, into aquamarine. So aquamarine, of course, actually is a cousin to beryl, seen right here, which makes for a fantastic segue of 8.5 out of 10, the hardness scale, just like emerald in aquamarine. And so the aspect also of aquamarine makes for a perfect cardinal water 4th and 5th chakra element stimulation that works very nicely in junction with the water element, which plays quite the crucial role to discuss these aspects of water concentration of stabilization, stimulation of, as well as the perfect bridge of the 4th and 5th chakras. So that, of course, will be the blade band discussion of the entire spectrum of the water elemental band range. Next, I'll be discussing the aspect of the blade facing seen right here that works in conjunction with the water element to work as a very powerful fortification and as well as a capacity to further stimulate the water element seen right here. So right here, this would be Amazonite. Amazonite is a very fantastic Egyptian locality utilization of water elemental frequency that stimulates the 4th and 5th chakras as well. Then going into blue lace agate. Blue lace agate is the fantastic 5th chakra stabilization in the mineral kingdom of water elemental capacity as well. And then that goes over here to Larimar, seen right here. So Larimar is an absolutely fantastic 5th and 6th chakra stimulant of water and fire element, which of course is actually very paradoxical because almost like a diametric opposition of elements. But the aspect that makes it relevant here too is Larimar is another very powerful oasis of calm generator that is very encouraging for one's highest truth to be made manifest in a very calm, soothing capacity. Then above that would be another layer of serpentine seen in the square right here. Serpentine is very appropriate to be here as a green elemental frequency as well to be another Kundalini stimulant from the top to the bottom. Then inside that would be a very legendary crystal, my humble opinion, named green seraphinite. So seraphinite is a member of the Holy Trinity of Master Healers I mentioned very briefly. So the seraphinite makes for a very powerful seraphic imbuement, if you would, of the entire chakra column as well. That stimulates the entire chakric nodes to the highest capacity. And once again, just like Star Argonite, dismantles dis-ease from the entire structure top to bottom. which makes it a truly dynamic master healer, particularly in conjunction with the Trinity, which will eventually, God willing, come all together towards the end. And then above the Seraphinite seen inside here, barely seen now because it's very, very well concealed, because of course it's made to be very protected so it doesn't run away, would be that of Moldavite. Moldavite is quite the famous green-red crystal in this day and age as a true magical stone that's gaining quite the reputation, to put it lightly. So of course Moldavite is a very powerful green ray storm elemental, high heart stimulant of unparalleled force of dharmic acceleration that aligns one's template to divine creation at a very hurricane sheer pace, as hence is quite infamous in this day and age for ruining people's lives because of how much the internal external world can be shaken up, basically to expedite the alchemical crucible to burn off the dross imperfections that are not of one's divine essence. But as a quick little preface, all the aspects of grounding and stabilization and purification transmutation is of course employed here with a great many layer of efficiency contingencies in mind to expedite the process as smooth as possible to mitigate timeline whiplash. As a quick little preface, I've learned my lesson over the years with the application of Moldavite to not wield it or employ it gingerly, to say it quite simply. So of course that's been a big aspect too. Efficiency is quite important and comfortability in this endeavor. And that would be the water element right there. Now we're getting onto wind. So the primary blade band of the wind element would be that of clear quartz to neutrally amplify the sequence into lapis lazuli, seen right here. Lapis lazuli is quite the famous blue ray wind elemental crystal of ancient Egyptian utilization as well, to be a proficient stimulation of the 5th and 6th chakras of one's sovereign highest truth and psychic capacities of latent natural dharmic template siddhis or psychic gifts. And so that aspect plays quite the critical role to know thyself with the aspect of past life recall and all that magical mystical goodness that has been quite favorited by millions for thousands of years. That's actually not an exaggeration. Lapis lazuli is quite the famous prolific stone of antiquity. That is why it's here. Then going to clear quartz into amethyst. Amethyst is a fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant of the wind spectrum, but primarily known for its crown chakra activation. And so the aspect of the amethyst makes for a very powerful divine alignment attunement to purify negativity into positivity through divine resonance. So naturally it works great in tandem with a strong grounding contingency to actually take this entire pitch and put it into the earth and ground through the entire auric field by proximity. Then going into clear quartz into purple fluorite, actually kind of a purplish green fluorite, oftentimes how they come. So fluorite is a very fantastic stone of order in the mineral kingdom that is quite famous and prolific for mitigating chaotic stray vibrations into cohesion and coherence. So the aspect of fluorite has a very special stimulation to the third eye or the neural pathway regions of the right and left hemispheres as well. And so that aspect too, it really works very effectively to mitigate cross interference that would not be of ideal whole brain thinking capacity, aka the awakened third eye. So it's very clearing, very structuring for various energies, which in this world is very advantageous with innate chaotic distribution of vibrations we endure as a human species. So that's a very nice little wind concentration. So of course this concentration will be very effective for the entirety of the wind spectrum of the higher chakras seen right here. And to support this agent right here would be that of chaurite, a lovely purple ray crystal. So chaurite is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant, of course indicative of a violet ray amethyst range. But the aspect of chaurite also has calcite and black dendric found in the structure, which black dendric is a very powerful earth star stimulant. So independently, this is a very powerful high frequency soul star, earth star stimulant, which makes for another powerful divine white imbuement through the entire auric field to have its own independent ground into the earth to, of course, expedite the process of the dharmic acceleration, which makes it a very advantageous placement there. So that's, of course, a very, very fantastic violet ray crystal based on its utilitarian spectrum range to ground in high vibrations of one's divine innate truth. Then right here will be grape agate. So, of course, like I mentioned before, the agates and the jaspers in the Mineral Kingdom are the most stable vibrations based on their color range and elemental correspondence. So, the aspect of grape agate is the most stabilizing 6th and 7th chakras to the Mineral Kingdom, which, of course, is very, very advantageous for keeping a stable, clear mind with all this magic, obviously. And right above that would be that of Tibetan Black Quartz, which actually is a member of the Holy Trinity of Master Healers I keep discussing. So, Tibetan Black Quartz from Tibet, of course, has a very intrinsic Om attunement resonance based on the locality of region discipline of spiritual adepts for thousands of years. Very cool and true. And the aspect also of Tibetan Black Quartz, it makes for a very powerful full light body stimulation from top to bottom as well, or even what can be considered a toroidal field ideal stimulant of massive rooting expansion of the Earth stars, as well as higher expansion of the stellar gateway and beyond, to of course be a very powerful full toroidal field stimulant of high frequency purification Om resonance that activates and stimulates and purifies the entire chakra column from top to bottom. Hence, now when I discuss the Holy Trinity of the Tibetan Black Quartz, the Star Argonite, as well as the Seraphim over here, that makes for a triumphant trifecta of full light body capacity healing from 3 different spectrums working together in vibrational compound interest. So that's why they're there in this very, very dynamic, well built out, all-encompassing spectrum generator. Then right above that would be Scoasite, which is a quintessential white ray crystal of divinity I employ quite religiously for exactly this purpose. Scoasite is a very fantastic, soothing 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant back to one's Godhead with a very powerful divine mind witness self stimulation of extreme divine alignment of extreme soothing peace to the mind. So of course, with that kind of divine soothing alignment of the higher chakras, puts one in resonance with the witness self of one's divine disposition. Luckily, that's, of course, could be a little louder than noise of the false self-implementations we've endured as a human species, God willing. And by golly, that actually would be the 4 terrestrial power packs mentioned up to this point, with almost near record time. So it feels. And so, like I mentioned, the aspect of the transmutation ratio works as a grounding scaffolding, as a common ground, if you would, to further perpetuate the earth, fire, water, and wind, to have a strong bypass ground into the Earth stars, of course, to be indicative to make the magic real and be its own massive energy purification by high amplification of Earth resonance. Then one of the other common denominators, which is very fitting to Earth, fire, water, and wind, would be that of ether, love, spirit, the 5th element, as a common denominator conjoining bandwidth. So of course, as a rule of thumb in the elemental balance of spectrums, you can think of all elements are in proper balance is ideal, except for love. Love, there is no cap or basically, in my humble opinion, any limitation or balance required, because that quite simply is the foundation of the source of emanations, or the force, if you would. So to be quite simple in that regard, be very large clear quartz to make neutral amplifications conjoining the 4 elements into rose quartz, a very famous and common, thank goodness, pink ray, high heart divine love alignment stimulant. So that's why that divine love is the common denominator seen down here. And next up here, at the very apex lateral blade bands, as it would be seen right here, be that of the green ray spectrum of abundance. So like I mentioned a while ago in this video, there are 50 cousins or siblings of exactly this concentration emanation out in distribution at this time period. And so this is another kind of segue cousin frequency tap point of the 50 out and about across the world, starting off with rutilated quartz to work as a very powerful amplification sequence. So like clear quartz, it has a natural amplification of other frequencies in blade band sequence, yet the rutile is a titanium oxide that works to supercharge and massively amplify whatever frequency node is around it to, of course, amplify the ideal heart chakra abundant configuration by design. Then going into peridot. Peridot is a very fantastic green ray positive frequency of 3rd and 4th chakra stimulation of the earth spectrum, of very much amplification of positivity, or that of chlorophyll, of course, how all this is possible, of growth, quite simply, caught in crystalline format, which is very advantageous for growing abundance by design. Then going into golden healer quartz, which is a very lovely gold white light high heart source attunement frequency as well, which makes for a very nice celestial activation point of high heart capacity with the divine alignment. Then going into emerald, seen right here. Emerald is a very fantastic green ray, like mentioned on the water spectrum as well. Heart chakra abundance activator of 8.5 at 10 the hardness scale, hence it's quite the famous crystal all mortals have heard of as a true precious stone of its abundant capacity of green ray nature. Then root weighted quartz to amplify into moss green agate once again, the most stabilizing heart chakra stimulant in the mineral kingdom. So the aspect too of the extreme concentrated source amplified stimulation of the peridot and emerald working together, of course, makes a very exaggerated heart chakra activation, but the aspect too, to make it consistent and make the magic real for abundance to be manifest, this by design is the stabilization of the heart chakra as well to, of course, stably align that high frequency source heart chakra terrestrial activation by design. So that's, of course, the abundance ratio, like I mentioned a few times now. Then up here will be a slightly varied rendition of the love shine ratio, much like down here, affixed to the love currency coins seen in a blade band circular circuit like so. So starting off with, once again, the clear quartz to be a neutral amplification into kunzite. Kunzite is a pink ray, high heart stimulant of high lithium concentration, which makes a very soothing emotional vibration through the entire auric field love nature as well. Then going into golden healer quartz to be another gold white light, high heart source attunement, which is very, very advantageous in combination with the heavy divine love resonance. That which goes, of course, goes into clear quartz once again, seen right there, to be a fantastic divine love high heart stimulant. Then clear quartz, then kunzite, then the golden healer quartz, and so on, completing the sequence of the love shine ratios on both of the coins, seen right here, once again on a silver and brass for the maximum output of love and the maximum input of love, to be a heavy concentration of the polarities of input-output of the love shine frequency. And by golly, that actually would be the entire crystalline composition mentioned by now. So one more thing too, these guys right here have intentionally been affixed to the primary wire of this entire device, come off like auger clips, which are designed to be able to ground into other compatible frequency generators, such as a light blade wand, for a very relevant example, to ground in like so. So the aspect too, of course, when ideal configurations are afoot and this guy is illuminated with his own salt lamp cord and grounding into a space, any compatible frequencies such as a wand or even a wearable light blade talisman can ground into here to, of course, be tapped into the vibrational compound interest of the full dynamic standalone spectrum range of an all-encompassing energy activator. I hope that I think it's pretty sufficient to say by the time 43 minutes of explanation have gone by. And so the aspect too, of course, it works to be a charging, amplification, purification station, synergization station as well. And so with the combination of this light blade talisman as well as the wand, it hooks right in. So the aspect of the purification of the circuitry seen right here, grounding into the space, of course, can tap into this guy to charge, purify, and synergize the entire field of this light tech mainframe, such as the talisman and the wand. As a quick little example, and of course I installed 8, 2 on each of the terrestrial 4 power packs seen around the entire construct. And so, as a summary, I think it's pretty evident in this very long-winded, far-out rant, is developed to be quite the dynamic, full light body healer from many different variables from top to bottom, and to, of course, be amplified and grounded into the outlets of a space to generate a tangible contained field to pilot this extensive crystalline array through the entirety of any given space it's grounded into, such as event centers, houses, offices. These guys are basically in every single different aspect application by now, which is pretty cool. And it's been a lot of fun to see this perpetually regenerate into other constructs of its nature. Well, that would be it, I guess. 1,000 blessings, and may the force be with us all.